And so the Nonprofit Makeover, essentially, it helps people do what you were able to do with your nonprofit, right?
Exactly. So I knew that when I was at my nonprofit that my gifts were much greater than one cause. Being able to help so many people and impact, and also raise a ton of money online before the pandemic was even a thing. So I wanted to be able to take those gifts, take those talents and ideas and share them with nonprofits. And then boom, the pandemic hit. And I was like, hey, this is an opportunity for me.
A lot of nonprofits were suffering.
Exactly. There was an opportunity to help other nonprofits that can raise more money be hip to sharing their mission online and getting more people involved, because that's what community is all about.
For sure.
One of our sponsors is Recon Marketing. Recon is the fastest growing social media marketing agency in Colorado. Recon focuses on becoming an extension of your business while providing social media management, review management, and digital marketing. Recon Marketing, putting you on the radar. Our next sponsor is Atmos Planning. Atmos Planning is changing the way business owners and real estate investors are served by the financial industry. Their website is atmosplanning.com, atmosplanning.com. Our next sponsor is Planet Duct. Planet Duct offers astronomical air duct cleaning with the most powerful vacuum trucks in Colorado. They have taken air duct cleaning to a new intergalactic level that is far more powerful and proactive than anything on the market in El Paso County and southern Colorado.
Sheath Underwear. Sheath Underwear has a pouch for the boys. It is everyday underwear for every man. 100% money back on the first pair if you don't like it. Visit sheathunderwear.com and enter the code COSBP20 to get 20% off your order. The People's Tiny House Festival is the nation's largest gathering of simple living, featuring van conversions, bus conversions, and tiny houses, of course. Catch the event in Loveland, Colorado, July 16th and 17th at the Ranch Events Complex.
Get your tickets at peoplestinyhousefestival.com/tickets.
Welcome back to the COS Business Podcast, the #1 podcast in Colorado Springs and soon the world. My name is Andrew Hasley, and I am the host of the show. Today, I'm sitting here with Kristen Faith Sharpe, right? And she's with Boss Babe Networking. And what was the other one?
The Nonprofit Makeover.
The Nonprofit Makeover.
Yes.
And I've actually had the pleasure of seeing you talk about your experience on stage at 1 Million Cups. And so I'm familiar with, kind of the precursor to the Nonprofit Makeover in a lot, and the story behind that. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Sure. So just about 10 years ago, I left an abusive relationship and shared my restraining order on Facebook and let the world read it. It was my way of inspiring other people to share their stories in hopes that through my story, they felt empowered to share theirs. That's what ultimately led to transitioning out of the organization after creating amazing impact, reaching millions of people, raising over $1 million online, and really changing the way that domestic violence was seen and heard and understood. I transitioned out of the nonprofit back in 2020 and created Boss Babe Networking and the Nonprofit Makeover.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so the Nonprofit Makeover, essentially, it helps people do what you were able to do with your nonprofit, right?
Exactly. So I knew that when I was at my nonprofit that my gifts were much greater than one cause. Being able to help so many people and impact, and also raise a ton of money online before the pandemic was even a thing. So the way that I was building my nonprofit was different than what traditional organizations do now. So I wanted to be able to take those gifts, take those talents and ideas and share them with nonprofits. And then boom, the pandemic hit. And I was like, hey, this is an opportunity for me.
A lot of nonprofits were suffering.
Exactly. There was an opportunity to help other nonprofits that can raise more money be hip to sharing their mission online and getting more people involved, because that's what community is all about.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, sweet. So what do you think was I'm not doing the intros anymore, by the way, Marcus. I don't know if you've noticed. I kind of I usually be like, okay, we'll get into that more in this episode, and then bam, 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 music playing. But I decided I'm just gonna keep we don't need the intros, I don't think.
Sure.
We have an intro kind of thing going, but
Cool.
But yeah, I realized the reason. Actually, I'll get into that right now. Do you know the reason why I made that decision to not stop doing that is because I don't want it to get in the way of the flow of the conversation. Like if the conversation's going, I noticed would happen a lot of times is just like I want the conversation to continue. Like
sure. I'm here for it.
Like, why start it up, stop it, and then start it back up again? You know?
Sure, I'm here for it.
Sweet, yeah. So what do you think were some of the main reasons why? And what was the it rhymed? I remember the nonprofit.
Break the silence against domestic violence.
Yes. And do you think that rhyming was the title was an important aspect of it?
Absolutely. The way that people understood domestic violence was very outdated. And for me, coming out of an abusive relationship and also growing up with domestic violence, I wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be cool to talk about the issue because I didn't want it to be a women's issue or a certain type of person's issue. I wanted it to be everybody's issue for them to understand that, hey, you can do something to create a change no matter if you were affected by it, no matter if you grew up with it, no matter if you know someone that was associated with someone, you know, that whole thing. So making it cool to talk about domestic violence was my jam. And the name that I chose for it stood for something much greater than the cause. It was a statement. It was a different way to approach domestic violence and also to get people excited about what it was. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I did I filmed a gala for a domestic violence nonprofit, Unsilenced Voices. I don't know if I think they're like a couple years old, so I don't know how many there are. I'm sure there's a lot to keep track of all of them.
Yeah, there's quite a few in Colorado Springs, and there's thousands across the country. So it's a wonderful cause that needs the attention and needs people to still stand up and break their silence. So being able to help more nonprofits that deal with domestic violence, even here in Colorado Springs, is really cool. Being able to share what I did with them or what I did with my nonprofit to help other nonprofits kind of do that same thing. Yeah.
And so funding is just one aspect of it. So where does that, what's the other aspects that makes a nonprofit successful?
Their social media presence. That's my jam when it comes to helping nonprofits tell their story. And it's about the story. It's about how you get your message across and how people can relate to that. Because let's be honest, I mean, I know we're talking about domestic violence, but you're not going to get excited if you're going to hear someone say, stop domestic violence, end domestic violence. It's outdated. No one wants to hear it. And millennials don't want to hear it. It's not exciting. And I'm not going to wear a t-shirt that says end domestic violence. But if you're going to tell me to break the silence, if you're going to tell me to get loud, if you're going to excuse my language, say FDV, then I might be, what did you say? And it gets people excited and interested and curious about what the cause is. So social media presence is my jam. I tell nonprofits how to create content. I tell them how to create impactful messaging. I help them create impactful branding because all of that is related and all of it creates what is going to become a successful nonprofit. The fundraising will come, the dollars will come if people understand what your nonprofit is doing. So for me, I teach organizations how to fundraise online. I teach them how to create better messaging. I tell them how to create a better team, and ultimately that creates what the Nonprofit Makeover is.
Nice. So every aspect, like down to marketing, down to structure, down to funding.
Content and fundraising. Yep, exactly.
Okay, sweet. So what kind of just to explore that a little more, just because I hope to provide value to the listeners and maybe inspire someone to want to start their own nonprofit, because I think that's awesome, you know.
Absolutely.
The more people that are helping more people, the world's just better, you know.
Absolutely. And that was my thing. When I transitioned out of my nonprofit, I knew that if I poured into more nonprofits, that's ultimately me pouring into millions of more people that can be impacted. When I was with my nonprofit, we were reaching about 200 million people every month.
Nice.
And that's huge.
That is huge.
That's like a ton of households all over the world. So imagine if I poured into one nonprofit for cerebral palsy, or another organization that deals with seniors, or another organization that deals with children. We are impacting thousands upon millions of people in our community to create it to make it a better place. Yeah.
So what do you see as like a main reason why a nonprofit is struggling, or, you know, maybe on the verge of failing? What is some of those things?
They're outdated.
Okay.
And with all due respect, it's because of the way that nonprofits have been running. It's outdated and it's very traditional. I mean, we can get down to the nitty-gritty of, nonprofits are still sending paper mailers in the mail. Let's be honest. Millennials aren't opening paper mailers that say, hey, donate.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, millennials aren't going to, the same type of events or the same type of, gatherings for causes that maybe other demographics are. And the way that I want to, really shine a light for nonprofits is the future of giving is in millennials and in our generation. And for us, we want it to be cool. We want it to be exciting. We want it to be fresh. We want it to be fun. That's why we created Battle of the Bands. That's why we did, luau's. That's why we did partnerships with Sephora and big name corporations, because we knew that people were going to get excited about it. And so for nonprofits, the whole social media thing is foreign, and I don't want it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to look at it. I don't think it's valuable.
Yeah.
But I was raising about $20,000 a month on Facebook donations alone during the pandemic.
Wow.
So if that doesn't say something to you, we need to get with the program. We need to get hip. We need to get up to date so you can reach more people and get those donations all over the place, not just by grants, not just by those paper mailers, not just by walking down the street, say, hey, give me a donation. We want people to get excited about giving, and we want those people to get excited to tell other people about giving.
And make a bigger impact.
Exactly.
Because you can definitely, that's the power of the internet, you know?
Yep, exactly.
It's to reach more people, and when you're able to do that, you can have a more of an impact.
Absolutely.
Like, there was a lot of nonprofits that went out of business because of COVID.
Yes.
In fact, matter of fact, this office right here was a nonprofit.
Wow.
Like it was like the office for the podcast.
Yeah.
And so it was,
Wow.
I forget the exact name, but yeah, they closed down and they were helping people like and then they couldn't no more.
Yeah, it's hard, and I wish that I was able to help those nonprofits before that happened. But I realized that there was such a great need. I don't know if you know this, but there are 1,500 nonprofits in Colorado Springs.
I've heard.
And there are so many nonprofits that need help, and there are so many different opportunities to help them, whether it's a virtual benefit concert, whether that's creating music marketing, whether that's creating content, whether that's creating a fundraising strategy online or a digital marketing strategy online, or creating better social media campaigns, or even just creating social media campaigns. All of these things are foreign to nonprofits that have been doing the same thing for decades.
Yeah.
So,
Which is what is some of those things that they're doing that are kind of outdated?
Well, the paper mailers is
paper mail,
one.
for sure, yeah.
The types of events that are being hosted are the same types of events. Let's switch it up. Let's get a little different. Let's, spice it up and see what works and what's not working. Even just diversifying how money is raised. I think a lot of organizations stick with the same things, and that's great. But what happens if all the grants dry up? What happens if you're a smaller nonprofit and you want to apply for a grant, but you can't get the grant because another organization here is already they have the team, they have the infrastructure, and they have the manpower to apply for those grants, and they have the capacity and the capital to still go even if they don't have a grant or grant funding. But then we have these new nonprofits that are coming up into our community, and they think that applying for a grant is going to be their solution, which is great. But if you're just putting all your eggs in that basket, what happens when you don't get that grant? You're going to be broke, and you're going to have to close your doors. So we have to think of ways that how we can help you beyond just grants.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So how long were you doing Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence? Is there an abbreviation for that?
I called it BTS.
Okay.
BTS ADV is the short. The nonprofit is 10 years old now, and I was with them for about 8 years.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And you did you start it, or
I
you
did
just
start it.
Oh, you started.
Yep.
Okay.
I started it while I was in college. I was 22 years old. I left an abusive relationship and lit the world on fire.
Okay. You were ready to go. You said that announcing it on Facebook kind of was that like a catalyst for you to really.
Yeah, it was different, and nonprofits weren't doing that. And most importantly, people who are affected by domestic violence don't just go and share their restraining order on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I did. And I was different, and that kind of just shows
you were representing what you were talking about. You were breaking the silence.
Yeah, and that spoke for who I was and what the work that I was doing. That I'm here to create an impact, and so that's who I am, and that's who I will be. Is someone who wants to create an impact and bring people together, and bring the community together, whether I'm in San Diego, which is where I'm from, or out here in the Springs, or if I'm in Wichita, Kansas, or New York City, or in Malaysia, wherever people are. It's all about community and bringing people together and showing people how to do it.
For sure. And the power of the internet allows you to do that.
Absolutely.
From Colorado Springs.
Yep. Yes.
So do you work with nonprofits from around the world?
I do. So we've worked with, what feels like a lot of nonprofits over the last year, and during the pandemic especially.
And this the Makeover, Nonprofit Makeover, this is like about a year old, right? It's pretty new.
It is a year old. It's still a baby. So it's really exciting that everything that we do is fresh and new and different, and if something works, awesome, we're going to run it. If it's not working, then it's all about pivoting. Being an entrepreneur, that's what it's about.
Yep.
So yes, I've helped organizations all over the world, and it's exciting because the causes vary from all sorts of different things.
Nice. Okay, sweet. Well, let's talk about the Boss Babe Network. What's going on with that?
Sweet. So taking my Nonprofit Makeover hat and turning it into Boss Babe Networking. So that piece was created also during the pandemic. And it honestly started off as a hobby. It was just a way for me to bring women together because I was missing human interaction. And I put together a small networking event at COS, and it was really well received. And then literally the next day, the pandemic shut everything down again. Okay, cool. So then 2021, we brought the event back by doing another event at COS. We did International Women's Day, which, quick plug, we have another event on March 8th.
Okay, nice. At COS?
No, we actually have it at Epiphany.
Okay, nice.
It's going to be so epic. We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, yeah.
But we were bringing together women vendors, women-owned businesses, boss babes, people who were just wanting to support women. We had painters, we had artists, we had boudoir photography. We had all sorts of all things women all in one place for the International Women's Day event. And that turned into networking events, and then that turned into trips to Hawaii. I did a Boss Babe Tropical Getaway, which was super epic. I was able to bring a bunch of women from here and in Florida to Hawaii for a beautiful trip. It was super amazing. Then we offer social media management services for select businesses. We're very selective on who we work with, but boom, that's what Boss Babe.
Boss Babe does the social media management as well? Okay.
Yep. We
women businesses, I assume?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So we are not just limiting ourselves to just women, but we definitely have a heart for women. But because we're so great at what we do, we want to be able to share our talents and our gifts with other businesses as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting that the network event evolved into essentially a marketing company.
So many things. Yeah, right? It's all of the pieces and all the things that I'm good at, my team's good at, and we just bring things to life, which is really exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you bring your so what did you stop doing Break the Silence?
No, it's still happening.
Okay.
It's still going.
You passed it to someone else?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep it at that.
Okay. I was just curious because when you said you had a team, I was wondering if you brought the team that you had there, or if you got new people, or how that looked.
Sure, we'll talk.
If you're okay with
it's one of those things that I can't disclose quite yet.
Okay.
But I will say this: that the nonprofit is still happening, and my greatest hope is that they're still creating an impact and really taking the vision that I had with the nonprofit and really just bringing it to life. When I transitioned out, I know that a lot of people were confused about the transition, but I think it was the best move for me, and being able to share my gifts with more nonprofits and being able to really just bring the impact to outside of domestic violence and being able to help more causes. I think that was great. There was some transition that happened as well with the team that I had and that I built with the nonprofit, but there is still a team that exists with Break the Silence, and they still create impact with survivors of domestic violence.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, what is some of the coolest things you've done with the nonprofit, I guess you could say?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. I was featured in Glamour Magazine, ESPN, Huffington Post. I did a photo shoot in the One World Trade Center, and it was featured in Glamour Magazine, the same magazine that Kim Kardashian was in. I've met tons of celebrities, from CBS sports analyst James Brown, rock star Dave Navarro. We had a community discussion in an adult film star's house about abuse.
Okay.
Christy Mack, I'm not sure if you've heard of her.
I don't know.
So she's an adult film star.
We have an episode on this podcast actually that's doing really well because they share the same name as an adult film star.
So great. That's awesome. We've done really fun events. I've gone on national tours. I've done a documentary. And I'm not a videographer. I had this idea of going on tour and filming survivors and going around the country and filming their stories. I did that.
Nice.
I met a lot of people, hosted a lot of events. I've traveled across the country and just lived a really awesome journey with the nonprofit for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it opened like a whole new world for you.
Yeah, most definitely. It did, and it really taught me so much about myself. Coming out of that situation and ultimately becoming the woman that I am today. If it wasn't for those experiences with that nonprofit, I wouldn't be me. And I think that that's something to really cherish with where I'm at now.
Well, sweet. So do you have any, what are your goals with the Nonprofit Makeover? And I'm saying that right? Okay.
Yeah. So my goals are to create an impact and being able to help as many nonprofits as I can. And I have a lot of people behind me that help with making this possible. So, for example, one of my partners, which also happens to be my husband's company, Anthem Music Enterprises, we partner with social media campaigns, content, music marketing. They've also helped put together one of the most epic virtual benefit concerts that I've ever seen during the pandemic. We did it at a studio out here, and it was so beautifully done.
When was that? Was that before I met you guys? I don't know if I've seen that.
I'll have to send it to you.
Okay.
The benefit concert?
It was virtual, all virtual?
It was virtual.
Okay.
Of course, we filmed it like humans, here, live, but we were able to stream it virtually. And we raised about $16,000 for the nonprofit during the pandemic. We did that in July of 2020. So I don't know if you've seen it or not. I'll send it to you.
There was a lot of cool virtual shows going on. I know Post Malone did one. Like, this is the beginning of the pandemic, and like I seen like a deposit for like $100,000. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, not that much, but it was like, but within like an hour he had like raised like 300,000. I was like, this is crazy, dude.
It's also Post Malone.
Yeah, it's also Post Malone. Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a really great performance where we were able to bring local musicians and also artists from LA to come out. We also had our friend Q, shout out to Q the Rebel, who came out to film our production as well. And we had a whole team. And if it wasn't for Anthem Music Enterprises, quick plug, it wouldn't have been possible. So we were able to put a benefit concert together. That was really awesome. We do a lot. So our partners really make what we do possible, because this is not a one-woman show. This is not a one-person jam. I truly believe that teamwork makes the dream work. And even situations like this, having this conversation is going to spark the attention of other nonprofit leaders who are going to be like, oh, what the heck is that? And you provided that opportunity to do that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that as well. And speaking of Terry Josiah, his episode is, you can actually listen to about Anthem Music Enterprises because he has an episode on here that's like way back. I mean, it's like a year and a half ago, but it feels like forever ago.
Right?
Time's it's weird how that works, how time backwards feels like forever ago, but like literally I can already feel like this year's already going to be over tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
You know, like,
I want to take it piece by piece. Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, I feel like this year's going to be like my fastest year just because I'm so like busy, you know, and got a lot going on, more than I've had in different years. So it's interesting how that works, but it's more fulfilling as well too. A fast life, I guess.
It's an exciting life.
Yeah.
I like to, now that this chapter that I'm in now, everyone thinks that I'm super busy, which I am, by the way, for the record. But I'm as busy as I want to be. And I am very intentional about my time and how I spend my time and who I spend my time with, just because life is too short. And I want to make sure that the people that I am surrounding myself with, the people that I'm working with, are in alignment with my vision and my goals. And so this year, I'm hoping that it's everything that I've imagined it to be. I literally have the number 22 tattooed on my back.
Okay.
So it's very intentional, and I hope that this year is exactly what I thought it was going to be. So I'm excited about that, too.
Why do you have 22 on the back?
Well, I left an abusive relationship when I was 22, and that was a really pivotal year for me because it ultimately springboarded me into the woman that I am today. And so it's a whole story. I can literally talk a whole another segment on that, but it's a whole thing. Yeah.
I know Taylor Swift has a song called 22. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
And I don't, like, it's funny because, like, all these songs have a song about a different age. And, like, I just wish I could. 23, Blink-182, it's like, no one likes you when you're 23. And then Taylor Swift's got 22. I wish I
Adele has an album called 30 or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
I need to make one for, oh, dang it. I'm going to be 30 in a month. So Adele stole that from me. In like 2 months, actually. But yeah, so I was going somewhere with that.
Events. We were talking about events. We talked about the benefit concert. So going back to the event that I was just talking about. So the first event that we have coming up, speaking of Anthem Music Enterprises, so I say I am not a musician. I do not do music. Everyone always asks me that, and I do not. I don't.
Well, Yoko Ono thought she could do music, and she couldn't.
So
no, that was shady, you know. But I mean, have you heard it?
Well,
it's a different style.
I can't say I do music when I have a husband that does music, and he does it very well.
Yeah.
If you know Terry Josiah, you know that he's the man with the music. But when I say our team, I guess it's our team, right? It's our team, people, my husband's team, whatever. I still tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But anywho, they have a show on February 18th at Epiphany, and it's called the Urban Classic Date Night. And it's going to be a super awesome show. Our last show sold out, standing room only. It was literally packed to the brim. And so if you are someone who loves music, who wants to be a part of an amazing experience, February 18th at Epiphany, it's going down. Tickets are now on sale. Boom, that's happening. I also am putting together a show with Boss Babe Networking. Also benefits the Pikes Peak Children's Museum. We are going to be creating a Women of the World exhibit at the Pikes Peak Children's Museum. In case you haven't been there, it's a really dope museum.
I didn't know it existed.
Boom, there it is. A new nonprofit. It's right across the street from Springs Trampoline Park. It's right on Airport Road.
Okay.
Amazing organization that I had the pleasure of working with last year. And so we are creating a Women of the World display from the content that we're going to be shooting at our Women of the World multicultural production, also at Epiphany on March 8th on International Women's Day.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful assortment of different performances from women literally all over the world, from
Nice.
Flacorico to Latin fusion to Tahitian dance, from a hula dance to hip hop dance, you name it. We are highlighting different women of the world and having a beautiful production for International Women's Day.
That's cool. Yeah. Nice. And when is that one?
March 8th.
March 8th, and then February 18th.
Yes.
For the Urban Classic at Epiphany, and these are both at Epiphany, right?
Yes.
Nice.
We're big fans of Epiphany.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, they're pretty new too.
Yes.
So how did you guys make that connection? I'm curious.
That's one of those questions for my husband. You want to answer that? I guess let me see if I could do your story justice. Okay, so my husband was a part of the Colorado Enterprise Fund. It's a great community building program.
Oh yeah, with Corey Arcarice. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so even though we knew Jules, but Jules was in the program as well. My husband was looking for different venue opportunities, and Jules knows one of the owners of Epiphany. Shout out to Ben. And she made the connection between the two. They hit it off. Incredible, wonderful owners at Epiphany, Russ, Mandy, and Ben. Incredible human beings, all about community, all about bringing people together and bringing diversity to their space as well, which I think is really special. Being super mixed myself, having a space where you're supported, it has great food, it has great entertainment, it's a great looking space. And if you haven't been to Epiphany, it's where the old Thirsty Parrot is. And let me tell you, it's bougie and it's all things Boss Babe, and I love it. And so they made that connection. They did their first show a few days before Christmas, and it was a sell-out, show-stopping show that people are still talking about. Yes.
Just from the social media post that you can feel the energy.
Yeah, shout out to their social media manager.
Oh yeah, is that someone in the room?
Your girl right here. But yeah, it's an incredible space, and did I do that story justice? Sweet.
Nice.
So yeah, that's how it happened. And then of course my husband connected me with them, and I connected with Mandy on this particular event. Her birthday is going to be coming up actually a few days around International Women's Day. So I don't know if she's going to watch this podcast. Maybe she will, but we might be doing something special for her.
Is she part owner of Epiphany? Okay, sweet.
So it's Russ and Mandy, their husband and wife duo, and Ben.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Okay, nice.
Also, don't forget the overlap was Ben was like, oh yeah, Russ is business partners with Yemi.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So in case, I mean, you can't see my husband in the room right now, but he's my eyes and ears. And he also reminded me that the connection that really solidified the partnership was we're really good friends with Yemi. Wow. I was trying to combine his first and last name. But Yemi is an incredible human being. Do you know Yemi?
I don't know. Yeah.
He's an amazing human being. You need to meet him and get him on the show too. So I don't even know if don't plug it. Okay. So Yemi though is an incredible human being, great community activist, super all about the community. And we know him. He also goes to our same church, DCC.
Okay.
And Russ is also business partners with Yemi. So when all these connections happen, we're like, okay, there's a lot of synergy, a lot of, collaborations that have been in progress. So that's how that happened too.
Nice. Well, sweet. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love just to learn how connections form. Like let people know. It's like it's there's that saying. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But then it's like you can literally get to know anybody.
But it's also about who knows you.
Yeah, that too. Yes.
And creating those healthy partnerships and healthy.
That sounds like the social media coming out of you.
Absolutely. And social media is how you do it. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that. And or I'm just going to post on Tuesday because it's Tuesday, and that's great. But if you really want to create action, you want to create those relationships and create that awareness about your brand or your podcast or whatever it is.
Well, that's actually why I started this podcast. That was the original reason, was to help get to know business owners and get my name out there, let people know me.
That's
and
cool.
then it evolved into more things, and it actually it's like, okay, this thing's actually pretty cool,
and just for you to know, and I'm sure you know this, a lot of people that whether I'm doing business or, talking to people or collaborating with people, I've heard your name be brought up.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So you're doing it. So it's working.
So are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Absolutely.
Okay, yes.
Gary V.
That's my dude. He actually, the reason why he says start a podcast, he actually gave me the idea. Like, he literally said, start a podcast called Your City Name Business Podcast. I was like, Colorado Springs Business Podcast. And that's kind of like, but when he said that though, it really resonated with me. I was like driving, I was like, I'm going to start this, I'm going to make this happen. But one of his analogies, I think, is the best analogy for that, like letting people know your name. But he said like that in high school, there's that one kid who had like medium popularity maybe, and but his parents were away on the weekends, so he started throwing parties. And he said, and then his popularity shot up, and then he said, having a podcast is like throwing the party. And so it's like, my name's gotten brought up in a few places. I've actually been recognized in public 5 times by people I didn't know. And like that's the weirdest thing too. It's like, 'cause our reach isn't like massive, like our reach, but it's so like concentrated that's like that just happens. I was walking my dog at the dog park, and some guy walked past me, and he was like, "Hey, don't you do that podcast?" And I was like, "Wow, I feel like."
Isn't that a good feeling?
Yeah.
Like, all your hard work, because people see the product, they see what you're putting out there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he got a podcast and he's doing all things." But like, no one saw you grinding to make this happen.
Yes.
No one saw you building your podcast. No one saw you putting in hours and sleepless nights.
It's the consistency. I mean, he saw it.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, but other people don't. They see the display. They see the beautiful, videos you put out, the interviews, the people that are coming onto your show. But it's awesome because you know how much hard work you put into it. And then for people to recognize that, maybe people that don't even know you, and you're like, dang, I did it.
Yeah.
I did it.
It really is a good feeling. It's like, and so it's like, there's the consistent work, and like, that's why I added that in Soon the World, #1 podcast.
Hey, just put it out there. It's the best podcast in the world.
Yeah,
Boom, there it is. Drop mic.
And the reason why I believe that it's possible too. I mean, yes, it's community based. It's Colorado Springs centric, but the things that the values and the things we discuss in the podcast are applicable across the nation. And also there's business development there too. It's like, you never know who's in New Jersey who maybe has an aunt that lives in Colorado Springs, or maybe is planning to move to Colorado sometime, and then they come like, you never know where the connections are coming from. And that's kind of goes back to why I was saying, it's like, that's why I like hearing those stories of how you met this person, because you never know. Like, you never know who's watching. You never know what. As long as you're like putting yourself out there, it's like you said as well. It's like you gotta let people know who you are.
Absolutely.
And it's huge, and
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that as well. It depends on what you want in life, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It really depends on that. But yeah, I guess we could start winding this down. Is there anything else you would like to promote or let people know?
Well, we talked about Boss Babe Networking. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
We talked a great deal, and I didn't know we were even going to open that door of my nonprofit, which I appreciate, because I haven't told that story in a minute. So I appreciate that, and being able to, impact others and listeners, watchers, to let them know where I came from. Because I think that, kind of similar to what I was just talking about with you, is that people see me here, but they didn't see me when I was getting out of that situation. They didn't see the hours, the sleepless nights, the grinding in the gym to make what I built possible. And so they see the finished product, and that's great. So being able to share those stories and share these moments really just brings it to life that, hey, I'm a real person. I fail, and I can succeed, and I fall, and I pick myself back up. And I hope that inspires other people who may be creating nonprofits, who may be wanting to share their story, who may want to connect with other people. I think my greatest hope is that someone watching this or listening is, hey, anything is possible. You just got to dream, and you just got to create a plan. That's my jam, is create a plan. It's not about, I hope that I'm going to do this, or my biggest dream is. No, if your dream is to be on a podcast, if your dream is to create a podcast, the ultimate way to do that is literally creating steps on how you're going to do it. And so I think my takeaway for today is anything is possible. And also, if anyone wants to connect with me, they can find me anywhere on official Boss Babe Networking, or they can go and find me for my nonprofit stuff, all things the Nonprofit Makeover, Instagram, Facebook, my website, wherever social media is. You can find me on there, or just connect with me at I am Kristen Faith on social.
Yeah, or drop a comment and tag her in this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool. I didn't know we were gonna talk about go deep in that either, but it kind of just felt right, leaning into that, because I was like, I was also curious as well.
Yeah,
and it's actually funny bringing up Corey OKeefe again. She told me when she was on the show, it's like, I guess she started talking about things she didn't even she just started opening up, is what she said. And she told me that I was able to do that in a really good way. And I've built a skill, is what I've noticed, doing these interviews, doing these podcasts. And someone told me yesterday, one of my clients, they're like, you listen really well. I was like, well, you should have seen me before I did the podcast.
Nice.
No, I guess I can listen, but I get distracted too, and I get these thoughts, and I've had to learn how to cool those out during doing this podcast. It's like you're listening to someone, but then you get this thought, and you have to, just keep listening.
Hold there while I listen, but not interrupt you, so you can share your thought and I don't forget.
Yeah, well, it's I learned to just let it go. If I forget, just because I'm going to forget it. But it's better to listen to the conversation and actually be in tune with the person instead of thinking about what you want to talk about. So it's just something I've had, a skill that I've learned because of the podcast.
Sure.
So many benefits from doing this podcast. I've told a few people recently, actually. I think it's the biggest impact I've had for my business doing this podcast. I think it's literally the best thing I've done for my business.
That's awesome.
And that's without getting, I wouldn't even mind if we didn't have any sponsors, just because it's so valuable in that aspect, I think. And then that's the selfish aspect. The non-selfish aspect is the awesome impact it has for the community, for the people in the community, and I think it's just that just makes it even better. And that's the reason why I continue to do it.
Well, shout out to you for believing in your mission and believing in your purpose and giving people a voice in this way. It's kind of like we have a similar way in giving people a voice in terms of creating content for them, because ultimately this is creating content for people to share and to chop it up and all those things, without getting into the nitty-gritty of social.
Oh yeah.
But you're giving people a voice in a really special way, and I hope you understand that that's really important for a lot of people who feel like their story doesn't matter. And for you to be able to sit and provide this space for people to talk and to share and to open up and to share their gifts with people who are watching or listening, I think that's really special. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm excited because it takes just one episode to lift the whole platform up. Like one episode, and then it leads to like so much growth for everyone who's been on the show. That's a big driver for me as well. So
Well, this is going to be your most viewed podcast,
okay,
and, or video podcast. So shout out to
if it is, then that's perfectly fine with me.
Sweet.
All right. Well, this has been the COS Business Podcast, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one.